We'd love to have you join us. This is a free group. If you are not on Facebook, some videos that I do will be on YouTube, and then in the future, hopefully, there will be other options available for you as well. But I don't have those ready for you yet. Today, I want to talk about seeing beauty in other people, seeing beauty in the differences in other people, and how that helps us experience more of God and cultivate the things of God in our lives. The reason this topic came about is because we did the community chat. We did a community group call on Zoom a couple of weeks ago, and it just really stood out to me the variances of the type of people that were in the group, different locations, and gender, race, culture, um, ideologies, theological backgrounds. They were all different, and at first that made me kind of nervous because it's a big responsibility to facilitate a group and try to make sure that it's a safe place and also a place where we can hear one another. And in today's environment, that just feels really challenging. Divisiveness seems to be the norm. And I don't think that's really any different than it's been for ages. It just shows up differently. We see so much of it in the media, and it feels ever present because of social media and the news and the things that are going on in the world. But divisiveness has been there since the beginning. The enemy is always at work to draw us away from God, away from connection with God, connection with other people, and connection even within ourselves. Like sometimes we're disconnected because of the things that the enemy says. We just, I'm not going to get into all that. That's a whole other topic. But the struggles that we have internally that we tend to deny, and that keeps us disconnected internally, which keeps us from being able to connect to God and others. So, I wanted to talk about this a little bit, the divisiveness, and how maybe we can just choose in maybe even just one relationship today to see things a little differently, to allow ourselves, our thought processes, our emotional shifts, all of that to come from a different perspective when we engage with someone in our lives. So let's say it's a friend, maybe it's a partner, spouse in life, maybe it is a family member, a coworker, but somebody who sees the world differently than you do. Now, most of this conversation, just to be clear, is not about tolerating damaging, harmful actions from other people. So I want to make sure that that is really clear. Um, what I'm referring to is how we view another person in a way that helps us function and be who God's designed us to be. Okay. So let's step back to whatever that person is. Imagine who that is right now, whoever comes to mind first, and just hold that in your mind. And now, when you're thinking about the relationships with that person and you hear them say something, you see them do something, you see their choices, and maybe they're not God honoring choices. Maybe they're just different choices than you would make. Either way, if you get curious about why it matters to them, curious about what's happening for them, and maybe different ways that they approach something, you're gonna open the doorway for connection with that person if it's available in that situation. So, for example, let's say I have someone talking to me who believes something theologically different than I do, and they're going on and on about their theological viewpoint that I I find not only not helpful, but potentially harmful. Um, so I may have strong opinions about it that are very different than this other person. Okay, I get to choose what am I going to do with that. I get to choose how to engage with that person. When I use this filter of seeing the beauty of God's design in other people, I get curious and I wonder, how is this person wired? What are some things that this person has experienced that are different than things that I experience that may still somehow display the goodness of God in their lives? So, for example, I can think about just the theological difference that they have, and I get caught up in the facts, the information, the right or wrongness of it, and completely end up disconnected from them. Or I can step back and say, you know what? That person is clearly really passionate about this topic. I wonder why that is. And then maybe I can learn about some ways that God has designed them, the ways that they see the world differently, what matters to them. Um, and maybe they have a different way of connecting to God that's different from me. And even though I don't agree with their approach, maybe there's something in it that I just don't know that God is using in their life. So, for example, for me, when my husband and I first got married, I stayed home with the kids, and he was working. That was what we needed in the season. Okay, so I'm in a situation with another person, and if they have the strong, strong, strong belief that the woman always stays at home and the man is the one that works, and they have a very traditional viewpoint, our views are going to clash, right? If that person focuses only on what I'm doing wrong or my viewpoint that's different, they're going to miss me completely. If that person can step back and say, oh, I wonder why that is. Why are they making that choice? And for me, um, I really felt like we were listening to God, and I was checking in to see what was needed for my children, and for my husband in this particular season of life, and then and getting curious about it. When if someone takes that assumption, they don't see that beauty of God in me, where I'm actually exploring things directly with God. It gets missed completely. And so rather than focusing on the divisive issue and getting all worked up inside about the things that we disagree on, I can get curious and explore with another person about what matters to them and why it matters to them. That doesn't mean that I have to agree with another person. And that is one of the things that I think trips a lot of us up as believers is we are afraid to have these conversations with people who believe differently or have a different perspective, um, because suddenly we feel like we're off kilter. We're not anchored enough in our on who we are and what we believe that somehow it's all going to change because we listen to another person's perspective. We consider their perspective. We value who they are in their different perspective. And then somehow we feel like we're going to lose a sense of ourselves. And that speaks to something that's deeper inside of us that needs to be worked on between us and God. That's another topic for another day about kind of identity and how we understand our identity in Christ. For today, I just want to challenge each of us to consider in one relationship, how can I see God's beauty on display in that person? Maybe it's a way that they see the world. So I also think of things like the Enneagram or the Myers Briggs, the different personality profiles. Those, for me, highlight different ways that we reflect God, um, that that looks different to other people. So, for example, when you have somebody who is high thinking versus somebody who's high feeling, or like me, who's strong in both categories, um, the way that we approach things is going to be very different. Sometimes I need someone who's got more of the thinking process and they're more likely to just make a decision because of the thought process they've used. Maybe sometimes I need someone who's feeling more, or somebody who is more structured in life than I am. There's different things about them that are strong and that reflect the character of God, that I don't have or that are weaker in me. And I benefit from seeing that in another person. So, all this to say, I just want to challenge each of us to consider that one person in our life today where we can see that beauty and call that out, draw it out, call it out in them. Hold to who you still are. You don't have to change your opinion, don't have to change your stance on things. And you could say, hey, I just want you to know I hear that this is really meaningful to you, and I'd like to understand more of why that matters to you. For example, doesn't change who you are or your beliefs to do that for another person, and by doing so you will open the door to improved connection with that person as much as it's possible. I hope that's helpful, and I will see you guys next week.